Hey Audacious Youth Online, welcome to tonight's panel. I am with some absolute legends tonight. Can't wait to hear from them in a little bit, but I'm going to let them first introduce themselves. So first of all, over to Lizzie.
Hi guys, I'm Lizzie. I'm from Chester campus and I am 21.
And Lizzie, what is your, favourite thing about being locked down with all of your siblings?
Oh my goodness. So I've got 5 siblings and we're all living in the same house. So it's a little bit crazy, but I'm loving just learning new things. So I'm actually planting lots of things in my garden at the moment, which is a little bit weird. But yeah, just trying new things is what I'm really enjoying.
I'm Charlie. I am from Manchester. I'm doing Audacious College second year and youth intern.
Awesome. Charlie D, what is your favourite thing about editing videos? What do you like the most?
I'm not sure when this is going to go out, but a few weeks ago we did Dan and Alex's eggs. I've never had more fun editing than trying to put their stupid idea.
Hilarious.
Or creepy. I've had like 2.
All right, and then also from sunny Wales, repping the Chester Massive.
I'm Annie, I'm 17, and I'm from Chester Youth.
Annie, and what is your favourite thing about being a part of Chester Youth? And you are allowed to say Lee Brown is your youth leader.
Just the people, they're so kind and funny, and some good bands, especially with the Welsh and the English. That's always fun.
Amazing. And last but not least, coming in from Gloucester, we have tonight's guest, the incredible Nathan Jordan.
Hey everyone. Yes, so my name is Nathan Jordan. I herald from the amazing city of Gloucester, which is about 2.5-3 hours south of Manchester. I, along with my wife, we oversee all the youth work in one church, is the church that we're from. Very much like Audacious, we have a few different locations, so we oversee the youth work that goes on in those, and it is a privilege to be on this today. It's good to see Charlie. I style myself after Charlie. He's my icon. I basically follow him and then try and dress and emulate his life in any way that I can.
I can't tell the difference. Crazy story, right, Nathan? We actually met 4 or 5 years ago, something like that, in Gloucester itself. If you guys don't know, I was first moved to England to Gloucester, to an Elim church to lead a youth group there. And I sent out loads of emails trying to connect with youth leaders in Gloucester. And Nathan was the only person that replied because he's a legend. And we hung out and got coffee. So that was, mate, 4 or 5 years ago. Crazy. Time absolutely flies. But yeah, guys, if you don't know me, my name's Lee. I'm the youth pastor at Chester campus. Absolute privilege and honour to get to do what I do and love our young people. So shout out to the Chester Massive tuning in tonight and everybody from wherever you're watching from across Greater Manchester, the UK and the world. So guys, fun question to start. What is your favourite lockdown pastime?
If anyone knows me, they know that I do not exercise usually. I'm not the fittest person in the world, but like at the start of lockdown when they announced that we can have one form of exercise, I just okay, I'm going to start cycling. And I discovered just around the corner from my house is it's like the national cycling thing, and they've got a BMX course and multiple routes. So yeah, I've enjoyed exploring some of that area, which I never knew existed until lockdown began.
Kind of similar to Charlie. So I don't know if you guys have heard, Andy has been doing Joe Wicks. And I started doing it at the start because my sisters were doing it. And so it was at their PE. And so our whole family was doing it outside and we'd get in a little circle. It's so strange when I explain this. And we'd literally just copy what he's doing. And our neighbours, we didn't even know this. Our neighbours are fully watching us. And oh my goodness, it's so embarrassing. But I've kept on and it's I don't even know what week we're on now, but we've been going for so long and we're staying strong. I don't feel any different, but I'm sure it's doing something. But yeah, no, it's quite cool. That's something which has been new.
I've made friends with my neighbour's cat, and it's sort of become a game of closing all the windows at night because she likes to get through my bedroom and we've got a conservatory and there's a top window. It's tiny. And I was on Life Group and we were baking. And I turn around in the corner of my camera, there's this cat looking at me through a window. And I was like, can anyone else see that cat? Or am I going crazy or something? I turned around and I had to get her out, but it's quite high up. So I had to get her to come in and then try and shush her out the conservatory. But that's become a fun pastime.
Annie, does the cat have a name, or have you give her own name?
I just call it Cat. Like, it's not really anything creative, but I was washing the car the other day and she just sat there and I was like, you're gonna get wet, but...
Wait, pause on that. You were washing the car?
Yeah, because my brother did it and he didn't do a very good job, so my mum was like, you can do it. And I was like, okay.
I mean, your mum just got 2 car washes for the price of one. She done well.
Yeah.
She knows how to play you guys.
Amazing. For me, Annie, similar to you, but probably quite the opposite. I've been at war with the neighbours' cats, plural. There's multiple cats which attempt to come into my garden and just trash it with their feces. So I do not welcome them. I do not invite them. I do not name them. I chase them with hoses. I throw things at them. I'm fully convinced that cats are demonic. They're of the devil. Most of them are possessed. And certainly that's true of my neighbours' cats. So absolutely kind of get a witness on that. Like I am at war with them. We have a sandbox for my son. He's 19 months old, and that becomes their litter tray. So they're trying to throw the feces. I see it. They're attacking my son. So it's just nothing but straight war. That's what lockdown has been for me. War against the cats.
Wow, I feel like we have it easy in Chester, guys. Gloucester really need the Holy Spirit down there, right? Demonic attacks. Amazing. And yeah, for me, one thing that I've really loved to do is, since we've been doing all of these Zoom calls all the time, connect with people, I've bought myself a back massager in Jesus' name. £30 on Amazon. I get no commission. Cheeky plug. Change your life. Game changer.
Why have I not done that?
Because, mate, you're too busy trying to dress like Charlie D. That's why. Taking all your creative energy.
True.
Another question, guys. What has been your favourite Netflix show during lockdown?
I haven't watched a single Netflix show, but Disney Plus came out at just the right time. So I've been binge watching the golden age of Simpsons, which I'm completely loving, because a lot of the episodes I haven't seen in years and the jokes went right over my head as like a 7-8-year-old. Yeah, the humour is top notch.
Who's your favourite character, Charlie? Who do you resonate the most with?
Resonates most Ralph Wiggum all the way.
I'm just picturing Charlie say putting up a picture of Ralph right now on screen.
I don't actually have Netflix or Disney, which is kind of crazy that I'm still alive right now. I know. Well, I had it before and then uni hit and that whole stuff. And so, yeah, I don't really know. I think I've just been watching TV, but there's not a lot on. So you've got to kind of just, I mean, I was talking to Lee earlier about like gardening. I've started doing some gardening, which I think should be probably for old people, but and there's a guy called Monty Don, right? And he's like a famous gardener, I think. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll probably be like him one day kind of thing. And so I've been watching like these gardening programs, which I think I'm honestly losing the plot, like no pun intended, but I don't even know if that's going to happen. But yeah, so no Netflix, but loads of TV. Oh my gosh, we started watching Place in the Sun. I can't recommend it enough. Honestly, it's incredible. But yeah, that's it for me.
Wow, Nathan, redeem us, brother. I'm talking to youth leaders who don't have Netflix. They're reading their Bibles, spending their time with Jesus, loving the Lord. You got any, bro?
Well, I wish I could say that was the case. No, I've been binging everything. So Tiger King, my wife and I, we watched that in like a day and a half. It was crazy. I wouldn't recommend it because of the content, but it was fantastic. And now I'm on The Last Dance. So Michael Jordan's documentary, like just insane. Like so I style myself and I like kind of connect with, you got Charlie D, and then really it's Michael Jordan who I most associate myself with. I think him and I have so much in common, just looking at his lifestyle and his skill set. I'm joking, I'm nothing like him, but I aspire to be. The Last Dance, absolutely phenomenal. Michael Jordan, check that out, it's brilliant.
Wow, is it long? A couple of episodes? Is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure actually. I'm on episode 8. They're like an hour long each time, so yeah, it's meaty. It's good.
Sort of the same as Charlie with Disney Plus. I'd be wrong if I didn't admit I've watched all of the High School Musicals, Camp Rock, Teen Beach Movie, all of them. I'm just obsessed. I've watched them on repeat like every morning. My mum's going insane.
Cool. All right, guys. So let's do a bit of a deep dive on some questions. We're in our legacy series over our summer term. Legacy, all talking about what people have left behind, the imprint they've left on generations. So first question for you guys, let's have a convo around, is I want to know what or whose legacy is your life a result of? So I'll say that again. What or whose legacy is your life a result of?
Yeah, great question. Like what or who, I think that's the key. For me, and I'm sure for all of us, it's a whole multitude of things that make up who we are, people's lives, different experiences. I think for me, two things. So great people and great mistakes. That's the kind of the legacy that has led to who I am today. So hands down, I am who I am because of the faithfulness and the lives of so many great people that like kind of are surrounding me now, but I've encountered before. Just their kindness to me, people that saw something in me where I couldn't see it in myself, people that believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And I could name so many. Like God has been so good in sending some great people into my life. My family are incredible. My pastors are incredible. And I am hands down who I am because of those people. So great people, but two, great mistakes as well. Like we could spend the rest of this Zoom, me talking about the multitude of mistakes that I've made in so many different arenas. And loads of them just make me cringe, loads of them are just hard to hear, but they have made me who I am. I learned so much from my mistakes, like the legacy of my own mistakes, and there's this amazing phrase, it's not win or lose, it's win or learn. And if we could have a win or learn mentality with everything in life, it's I think that's a good way of living and a good way of kind of going about different things. Oftentimes we polarize them. I'm either gonna win here or I'm gonna lose, and we can be quite fearful. But win or learn. So I am who I am because of great people and great mistakes as well. They've taught me a lot.
Wow, Nathan, dropping the fire. I can almost see right now the clapping emojis going off in the chat prophetically right now. That was so good, bro. What's your story within that, mate? Did you grow up a Christian family in church? Were they the people that, brought you to faith, or did you, find out through friends, or what's the story?
Yeah, in a nutshell, my parents, I come from an amazing Christian home, a loving Christian home, and they brought me up in church. For me, church was always a profoundly positive experience. It's where my friends were, it's where my mates were, and it was engaging. Like I'm fortunate to have been brought up in an engaging church. However, even in that, I started living a bit of a double lifestyle. So I was one person in church, one person outside of, and really it was probably my late teens when I decided to make a choice between the person I wanted to be. And I can honestly say it's just like God has always been there, always been faithful, and he's always like kind of contended for my heart, to use that phrase. So late teens, I had no other choice. It's like my relationship with God is so real that even though this lifestyle, which is different to who I'm acting as here, even though there's some temptations and there's some good things about it, hands down, I just want Jesus. I just want to know him more. And that decision there has governed everything else about my life. And I've not looked back. I've not regretted it. It kind of set me on this amazing trajectory that enables me to do what I'm doing today.
That is awesome. I mean, I think all of us would agree that really is like the best start to a testimony you could have, is starting with great godly parents in a godly church, godly home. For me, I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I lived a crazy lifestyle till I was 16, drink, rock and roll, all the above. And people are like, I wish I had a crazy testimony like you. And I'm like, mine is like, the worst, right? Because I had to go through all of this stuff to get to this point in God. Whereas you grew up, in a Christian home, in a great environment. And that's the stuff that, is the best testimony, that God saved your family and God kept you and you didn't have to, walk through all of that stuff that other people walk through. So if you're watching tonight, shout out. And that is your story, is you've grown up in a Christian home. That really is the most exciting and the best story that you could ever have. So shout out to you guys living at large. Annie, what is your story? What's life like?
Yeah, I think I was very fortunate to go to Audacious when I did, on like a random night at the Crown Plaza in Chester, because before that I didn't really go to church like solidly. Like me and my mum knew we wanted to, but we needed to find that place that we both thought that we belonged in. I remember when we left, I was just like, this is where I want to be. Like, I want to be back in the Crown Plaza right now. And I think we were just both really excited because we found somewhere that we felt as if we needed to be, and it was really exciting. And then from that, I met my life group, and I think it's really important that you have that constant reminder of your faith, and also having people that relate to you or on the same journey as you, because you think you're alone, but in reality there's so many people going through the same thing, and that's really refreshing. And then obviously, like everyone does, you have particular people on your journey that have helped to sort of build that solid foundation within me, and then are still building it, because they're the ones that help you like strive for God, and the ones that help you to push forward when maybe you don't want to, sort of thing. And they're the ones who prayed for me when they knew that I needed it most.
Wow, that's so good, Annie. How have your life group leaders, played a part within that? Would you say it's been a life-changing role that they've played, a small role? Because I guess what you're talking about is the legacy that they've left in your life, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely been a life-changing thing for me, because I didn't really have people in my life before going to Audacious that were those solid people, and I didn't have people that would just chat to me about anything. Like, it didn't have to be about church stuff. They just talk about anything. It was just really really refreshing, but also really important, and I knew that I needed something like that at that time, especially.
Lizzie Rumsey, what or whose legacy is your life a result of?
Oh my gosh, so many people. Like, I couldn't even, if I tried, to name everybody who's had an impact in my life or said stuff, prayed for me. Like, there's honestly so many people. So I grew up in YWAM, which is a Christian organisation. And I was there for, about 5 years of my life, from 3 to 8. And so that is basically living with like 500 Christians every single day. You're like basically just church every day, which is kind of crazy. But that was for me like my upbringing. So really solid and really like a massive foundation in God. But I don't think those people will ever know the impact they've had on my life. And that's the crazy thing about legacy. Like, they won't know until we get to heaven and like celebrate together. But there's been so many people, like from preachers to neighbours to my parents who pray like all the time for us, youth pastors, like honestly, so many people who've had an impact. Like my grandma, she actually sends us mail all the time, and she signs it off saying, love from your grandma, love from your praying grandma, like Timothy had. And so I was always like, oh cool, like great grandma. But honestly, like now I understand, like she's really like going out there and praying for us and making sure we're completely covered in prayer. And it's so many people have had an impact in my life. But I also liked what you said, Nathan, about like experiences, because I hadn't really thought of that, if I'm honest, like legacy coming from what you've been through and what you've experienced. And so yeah, like we all have our own upbringings and all completely different, and mine being like super Christian, I guess you could say, but it still had its own challenges. And I think that sometimes we can see people's lives and think, wow, like a great, perfect Christian upbringing, and they must have had no problems. But like there's definitely, everybody has something they go through, and it really makes them who they are today. So yeah.
Wow, what a next generational mindset for your grandmum, right? I think that's what legacy's boiling down to, and we haven't asked Charlie yet, we'll ask him in a sec, but it's down to this like generational mindset that people that have either gone before or who are a couple of generations ahead of us that have this, great godly mindset that actually, they don't just want to see you do well, but actually they want you to stand on their shoulders. Mm-hmm. And they almost want the ceiling, that they once reached for become the floor that you start on. So truly amazing. Charlie D.
Thinking of people who've gone before is probably the thing most, like the way I think about legacy is like when my granddad was 2 years old, he was crossing the street and a truck was about to hit him, and some complete stranger threw him out of the way and was paralyzed for the rest of his life. And I think now that like if he hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be alive today. And thinking like people who have had that effect, and like you can go back many years and people I've never known who like sacrifice or whose God moving through them would mean that I wouldn't be here today. And so like I'm really conscious now that everything great I do, I owe to a man whose name I probably will never learn, who went through life, paralyzed because of one selfless act that he wasn't thinking, how is this going to affect the next generation? He was thinking, in a split moment, am I going to do the right thing? And he did the right thing, and that's the legacy I live under now. And so when I think of legacy, my first thought is that one guy who made a sacrifice, without really thinking it through to bring about my life.
Wow, man. It's great. And I guess that ties so well into this question. We're talking about people that have painted in and led a legacy for us. With that in mind, how do you overcome the distractions that life can throw at you and stay focused on living out your legacy? Because right now we're in a really fast food culture, aren't we? And lockdowns really showed us what that was in the past season, because now we can't get McDonald's on demand. We can't get what we want when we want. Life's slowed down massively. So when, we go back to some sort of faster rhythm of life, there's distractions, there's loads going on, there's things happening, there's stuff to focus on, keep us busy. How do we live a legacy mindset in the midst of all of that?
Yeah, distractions is a massive thing. Like, honestly, I don't think anybody actually doesn't have any distractions in their life, no matter what age you are, no matter where you live, what stage. Like, you could be the most deserted person in the world, but still have so many distractions. And I think that's how the enemy works as well. He wants to put you off of course and bring things into your life which maybe you don't even see them as distractions, but they can actually try and pull you away from where God wants you to be. And I think it's Romans 12:2, which says, do not conform to the ways of the world or the patterns of the world, but be renewed from inside. And that is something which I have to keep going back to, like that I'm not of the world, I'm just in the world, and that I've got to actually stand out from everybody else and ignore those distractions to really just represent Jesus. And that is like hard. That's not easy. And it's never going to be easy, but it's a decision you've got to keep making. And I think especially like as young people, you've really got to work hard to stand out from the crowd, because there's so many different cultures going on, so many different clubs, groups, all these things you can join. But to actually be like solid in Christianity and stand out from your friends is a huge thing. And I think like even during this pandemic, which we're in, and like I've seen a couple of people who have gone above and beyond what maybe is the norm and like try and stand out from the crowd. And like there's certain things like preaching TikToks or deep prayer times or being really generous when everyone else is drawing back. Like there's so many things you can actually do to stand out from the crowd, and that is our purpose at the end of the day. So God will give you the power to and the strength to do that, but you've really got to like work hard at it and not like come back to yourself, if that makes sense, but actually stand out from where you are.
I think a lot of distraction is compromise, which is what I have done a lot in the past, when like I'm resting on a promise of God, and then when that doesn't come to pass in my own time frame, I'm like, okay, how do I either make this happen myself, or how do I settle for something that's not as great as this? Which I've done in work and in like even my education life. I'm educated, and there were loads of times where I just didn't pursue stuff which I now regret now, or even again sitting on promises of what God has put on my life. And this always goes back in my mind to Abraham, when he got the promise from God that his descendants will, be as great as amount of stars in the sky. And then immediately after that, years after that, but the next chapter, you see him compromising and having the son with his servant instead of his wife, just going against what God had said and compromising to make the promise happen in his own manner. And so a lot of that as well is like, it's so easy to ignore God's time frame and see want stuff to happen in your own time. And so compromise is always like the biggest thing that I'm fighting against, especially in this season when the command is to wait, which is the worst thing to do when we've been told wait. And if we've got a promise from God that we think, it's got to happen soon, especially with me coming up to the end of my college year, and it's always like, what's God going to do with me next? And it could still be wait another year, wait another 2 years until the stuff I've shown you, I want you to do will come to pass. And so, yeah, I'm fighting a lot of compromise in this season. And it's so easy as well for like the enemy to get in and makes his thoughts and his lies seem like it's my own thoughts. And so, yeah, that's a massive battle we've just got to be strong against in this season of waiting.
It's good, mate. And what's your go-to? You know, when those thoughts come in, you feel tempted. You know, what do you respond with?
Truth. And like the only defense you've got when the enemy is lying is the truth. Like, I can just come against him, and a lot of the time it's not just saying, okay, here's the truth, and then you go back to the way you're living. It's like, this is the truth, and you got to stand on it, and you've got to think, one thing I used to do that I don't do so much of now is stick it up along the wall, like on post-it notes, like the truth that God has spoken over me. Like when I went through social anxiety disorder, like the truth that God is going to set me free. I had that written on my wall for years. Stuff like in Bible, highlight everything. My Bible is notoriously full of highlighted things, just because it's like the more truth you have in your arsenal, like when the enemy comes against you, it's like, no, God has said, God has shown me. And it's like the same original lie, did God really say? And it's like, yeah, he really said. And it's the only thing you can stand on, like take a promise, repeat it to the enemy, and he'll flee.
It's amazing, mate. I think Hebrews, one of the verses in Hebrews says, and this hope is the anchor for our soul. So in that season where, the devil's speaking lies, the hope of Jesus was literally your anchor, and that's what has brought you out the other side of that season. Many years later, like you said, not in the time frame we want most of the time, but the breakthrough came, and mate, you're living in the fruit of that, which is amazing.
I think it's just important to know that it's like your faith that opens up your legacy, because God's obviously given you like gifts and qualities that wouldn't really be there if God didn't want you to have them. And I think other things don't really matter if you know that God is the one that provided you these things. And in James 1 verse 17 it says, every gift God freely gives us is good and perfect, streaming down from the Father of lights, who shines from the heavens with no hidden shadow or darkness and is never subject to change. And I think that's just plain and simple God saying that use those gifts to your advantage. There's no point having them if you're not going to strive to use them. And then even though temptation is there every day, life in general is a distraction, it's everywhere, and I think it's just important to remember that God's the one that provides you with these things, and it's your faith that opens up your legacy.
Dropping the mic. Love it.
I wish I'd gone before you, Annie. That's really good. No, it's so good. And just to echo what everyone else has said there, really, there are a billion and one things to distract us from what is important and what matters most in life every day. And we all know what it feels like to get sucked into the vacuum of social media and just to lose hours on it. Like, what have I done for the past 3 hours? I've looked at videos of cats. It's so easily done. And for me, as has been said, it's faith is the antidote to those distractions. It's an intimate relationship with Jesus. He's the one that's going to keep me on track and keep me living in the legacy and the plans and the promises that he has for me. There's that amazing hymn, like, turn your eyes on Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. It's that simple, really, isn't it? And I think if we can get caught up in the goodness of Jesus and the wonder of Jesus and just fall more and more in love with him, the stuff that is on offer to us doesn't seem as good. And the stuff that would contend for our attention, it doesn't stick as much, because why would I go for cheap fast food when I've got amazing steak on offer? It's that kind of comparison. It's just not as good as living for Jesus, thinking about Jesus, living each day in step and relationship with him. Just to finish this thought, if it's okay, Lee, if I can just share this quick story. There's a preacher from my city called George Whitfield, and he's this famous evangelist, lived hundreds of years ago, and by the time he was aged 24, he had supposedly preached to more people on the planet than any other human in history to date. Like his life was on fire for Jesus. Like just Jesus got him, and he went everywhere, just told everyone about him. And like if you talk about like leaving a legacy and living in legacy, like there's a guy that was doing it. And there came to a point, so he was doing open air preaching, so like massive crowds, and he was just like sharing the goodness of God to them. And he was about to do one in London, and there were thousands and thousands and thousands of people there. And this is before the time of like microphones and anything like that. So the story goes that he was so nervous, and he was distracted by like fear, because like riots were happening. People didn't like the message, and like people would previously throw stuff, people would like kick off, and he was worried that people were going to die because of a riot. So he was just dead scared. And there's a guy called Charles Wesley that was his friend at the time, and he started the Methodist movement. And supposedly this is what happened. Right before he gets up on stage, Charles Wesley gets a piece of paper and he writes out this. He writes out, "Champion of God, thy Lord proclaim, Jesus alone resolve to know. Tread down thy foes in Jesus' name. Go conquering, and to conquer go." Like, what an amazing little note to give someone before you preach. Like, if I wrote that, it would be, "Good luck, mate. Off you go." But Jesus alone resolved to know. Like, don't worry about the distraction. Let it be. Like, what's going to happen is going to happen. But you focus on Jesus. Focus on what he's called you to do. The rest is going to work itself out. Champion of God, thy Lord proclaim, Jesus alone resolved to know.
Wow, what a story, man, what a legacy. I think when you were sharing that, mate, what brought my attention to it was thinking about Peter when he steps out on the water. You know, when he's focused on Jesus, he's walking on the water, but the moment he focuses on the waves, on the storms of life, in other words, the distraction, Peter starts to sink. And I think Charlie D was really honing in on it, is in the midst of distraction culture and so many things vying for our attention, our money, our life, is when we remain focused in Jesus every single day, spending time in our Bible, spending time in prayer. Actually, when our focus is on the right thing, that's going to ensure that, you know, we are the generation of people that walk on the water, and we're not among those that sink. And that's ultimately what God's called for One Church Gloucester, called for Audacious Church, is that we're not among the people that shrink back, but we're a generation of Christians filled with the Holy Spirit to go and change the world. So I love that story of George Whitfield being 24 years old. Like, I'm 26, right? And I'm like, wow, you know, I've 2 years on him, you know, and looking back, look what he's done already. And I think that when we hear stories like that, we're so inspired, aren't we, to want to go again, to want to leave a great legacy. So this leads me on to the next question. You know, let's think 100 years down the line, in 100 years' time, when we're all with Jesus, because we're all going to live really, really old lives. You know, we look back on our life. What do we want it to have been known for?
I can tell you what I don't want to be known for first. In like my hometown, one of my favourite things there is a gravestone. Well, not my favourite thing, it's kind of haunting really. It's a gravestone that says Joseph Carter, my beloved father, brother, uncle, and then underneath that it says like Mary Carter, and then wife of the above. And it's like her entire existence is just, you know, not cherished mother, sister, etc. It's just wife of the above. It's like her legacy is connection to a husband who's this, you know, greater man. And so yeah, in my mind I'm like, I don't want my life to be just a connection to someone else. So I want mine to be stand out, and I want to get to heaven and see people who's, you know, can say to me, you know, 20 years down the line, because of a decision I made as a passing thing, I am, you know, the result of, you know, salvation. Because you encouraged one young person in 2020, that young person went on to preach to thousands, and these thousands of people got saved just because I was there to spend time with someone and hopefully impart some wisdom into their lives. So that's what I exist as a youth leader, is to, you know, not to be the great person who can speak to multitudes, but to be the person who encouraged one person to see the potential in them and hopefully push them on to be that person to reach thousands.
It's great, mate. Your life group is going nuts in the chat right now. I see it in Jesus' name. Dude, you're such a legend. I mean, that is something we can all do, right? We're not all called to preach to thousands, but we are all called to love God and love people. And what a legacy that is, loving God and loving people. Mm-hmm. But looking back on your life, Lizzie, as a really, really old granny, you know, granny to 300 grandkids in the tradition of your family, what would you like to look back and be known for?
I think like God has got unique purposes for everybody, and if we just pursue like what God has put on our lives and strain towards like I think it's in Romans, it says run the race God has set for you. If everybody just runs their race, stays in their lane and like gets what God has asked them to do, then like the whole world is just going to be saved so quick, right? But I think it also says in Matthew 6 about what is it? It says, do not store up for yourselves things of the earth, but store up your treasures in heaven, or something like that. I'm going to paraphrase it. But basically, like for me, I should stretch towards things which are going to last forever and not just be material things on the world which will come and go, like not like worldly happiness or popularity or things like that, which really don't mean anything at the end of the day. And so for me, like in years to come, I would love to know that I've actually made a difference in this world and that people's lives have been changed, that souls have been saved, and that like when I get to heaven, I can see what has happened in the past and like meet all these amazing people and know that I've had a difference in some way. So yeah, like I would say definitely stretching towards eternal things rather than the worldly things is what I'd hope to do. And I think like recently, I think the past couple of weeks, you guys may know of a guy called Rabbi Zacharias, is that right? Yeah. And his legacy, oh my gosh, like how great was that man, and like how incredible the amount of people he's reached and what his life story is. But he, like to this point and in the future as well, he'll never fully know until he gets to heaven, like the amount of people he's affected, the amount of lives he's changed. And I just think that's so cool and so incredible, like that he was just living out his purpose with God and like telling everybody about Jesus, living in truth, like you were saying, Charlie, and he's really affected so many people's lives. And so, yeah, I'd love to be even remotely close to that.
I remember when I saw this question, I was a bit like, oh, I'm only 17, I'm going into upper six of college, like I'm be looking at university soon, how can I even imagine like what my legacy would be? But then I sort of thought about it a bit more and spoke about it with people and came to the conclusion that my age doesn't really matter, because whatever decision I make now creates that domino effect into my next stage of life and then onward and forwards. And pretty similar to what people have already said, like I want to make a difference in people's lives, even if it's just tiny. Like I've got friends that I know I want to like find God and come to church, but it's hard. Like you've got to be realistic about these things. It is difficult to talk to people, and I think I want to be that person that brings people closer to God, even if it's just coming to church once and like just talking to someone. That's something that I know I really want to do. And I think God has obviously put me in this group of friends for a reason, has put me in this college for a reason, and it's something that I have to remind myself every day, because I know I want to make a difference, and I want to be that person that people can go to if they because people do have questions, people are curious, people want to know but are scared to ask, and I know that's something that I'd like to do in my life.
Gloucester's very own Nathan Jordan.
And just to say, Annie, like that you can keep this in or not, but just to encourage you really that there's such a wonderful authenticity, I think, about how you're describing your faith and your experiences now, and you can articulate all that very, very well. So I wish I was as articulate as you when I was 17. So just to affirm, because I don't know you, this is the first time I've met yourself, just to affirm that like the impact that I'm sure you can have at this stage and will continue to have. I think it's exciting and awesome. So yeah, never, and the verse is never let anyone look down on you because you're young, hey, but yeah, never downplay that, or never downplay your own kind of perception of yourself and how you're articulating and expressing your faith. I think you're doing awesome. So yeah, again, if I could do that at 17, that'd be incredible. So I think, and as has been said, it's being true to what we are called to not compare ourselves, to not look at the Rabbi Zachariases of the world and to think, if only I need to write 17 million books, I need to do da-da-da. It's like, okay, what am I called to do? What are the gifts that God has given me? And how can I best fulfill that? So as I said, the people that I aspire to be like, it's Charlie, it's Michael Jordan, and then third it's Mother Teresa. And she said this, there's an amazing quote, and she says, I'm not called to be successful, I'm called to be faithful. That's what her quote is. And like, what an amazing idea, because I think the pressure that's on us and the pressure that's on you young people, like the cultural narrative at the moment, is just to be successful. Like, get followers, get likes, do something that's creative and innovative, be awesome all of the time, and be successful. Let your legacy be success, where it's just nonsense. And that contradicts the biblical narrative that tells us that it's humility and faithfulness that counts. And so you look at the story of the talents, where these guys are given these opportunities, and they're all given different amounts to do something with, and one is given 10, one is given 2, one is given 1. And the ones that do something with it, the ones that are faithful with what has been given to them, the response that the Master and Jesus, really God in the story, gives, it's the same to 10 and it's the same to 2. So it doesn't matter what you have or how big or small it is, as has been said. The key, I believe, is faithfulness. And I'm not called to be successful. I'm not called to leave a legacy of success as I would know it, but have I been faithful? Have I been faithful to my wife? Have I been faithful to my family? Have I been faithful to my church and to the ministry that God has called me to? What is it that Nathan Jordan has been put on the planet to do? So a legacy of faithfulness is what I'd like to leave behind.
And that's Nathan Jordan, not Michael Jordan, right?
They're synonymous, Lee. People mistake us all the time.
Mate, you've literally hit the nerve of our generation, right? This is how you know Nathan is a youth pastor. His ear is on youth culture, right? Is that confusion for youth of being famous and being great? Is in one hand, you think that to be great, you have to be famous. But actually, there's a lot of people who are famous, but sorry to get spicy on a Friday night, but they're just not that great. But then we've got a lot of people who are great and nobody knows who they are. But our whole generation has bought into this lie, that we need to pursue 5 seconds of fame over a lifetime of greatness. And actually, if we can do those faithful things every single day, that will look back and have a great legacy. We may have millions of followers, we may have 10 followers, but at the end of the day, who cares? Because we've all got, like Lizzie said, an assignment to run it and stay in our lane, to run our race. And that's what we're held accountable to when we stand before God. And that's the reality, isn't it? As followers of Jesus, one day, Jesus will either stand there and say, well done, good and faithful servant, or he won't, He won't say, well done, good and famous servant, well done, good and successful servant, as Nathan, you're saying, well done, good and faithful servant. And hey, if that's the legacy we can all leave, I reckon we would leave a mark in this generation that would be unforgettable. Rather than selling our calling short on the altar of getting famous or a couple more likes or selling our life short. Man, so good.
Really good.
Think of the quote, right? I think it's C.T. Studd. It says, only one life will soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last.
Yeah.
And I think if that's our mantra every day, today, what am I doing that will make a mark for Jesus? Loving people, encouraging someone, being generous. That's the stuff that builds the kingdom of God. Everything else, some of it may be good, some of it's not good. But really, when you boil it all down, that's what we got to live for as, Gloucester One Church, as Audacious Youth, Audacious Church, is that, hey, what are we doing for Christ today? Because that's what's going to last.
I think there was one thing I wanted to mention, and I think it was when Andy started off this series, he spoke about Hebrews 11, which just happened to be my favourite book, and I was like, oh my gosh. But it's so cool when you read it and you see every single name listed, and you see actually I think it was also Glyn a while back, he preached about this is our family lineage, this is where we come from. And when you think about it like that and think, oh my goodness, I come from Abraham, Isaac, I come from all of these people who've done so many incredible things, and your name will actually be at the end of that when you've fulfilled your purpose and when you've followed God and done everything he wants you to do, you will be added onto that family line. And I just think it's so cool to think like the same blood that runs through their veins is the same which runs through ours, and it's the same thing which should be like steering us to go forward and to reach people, reach nations, reach our friendship groups. So yeah, that was something which I thought was so cool from that verse, from that book. So yeah, so I'd share that with you guys.
I think it's funny as well we're going into that because like I've been reading through Hebrews in like devotional time, and like just before we started this series I'd written in the notebook like on Hebrews 11, like firstly what will my by faith story be, and then also on top of that was like none of these people had it easy. Like faith isn't an easy thing to have, this kind of legacy. It's not just like by faith he went and went about his day to day and God was there with him. It was more like they had to do an action that they had to take by faith, which is something that's like, to have a legacy, you've got to have the insane courage that only comes from God to be able to outwork what he's told us to do. And so like that really struck me, and like when I was reading through that chapter, it was like no one had it easy. It's like to walk the faith walk is, tough decisions, steadfastness, and just again believing that God has got you and is true to his word.
So good. Well, that was us for tonight's Audacious Youth online panel. Special thanks to Lizzie, Nathan, Charlie and Annie for being our guests on the panel tonight. You guys are amazing. We love you. Catch you soon.